Emperor Thrakton had ruled the hegemony for 60 years longer than any emperor before him. He had conquered 12 species, expanded the empire to over 300 worlds, and crushed every rebellion with ruthless efficiency. He was the most powerful being in known space. So when his military advisors told him that a handful of human survivors were causing problems, he was not impressed. They have destroyed 18 supply convoys and liberated 11 colonies, General Vex Tar reported. Nervously, our intelligence suggests they are building a significant alliance with former slave species. Thrakton's massive form shifted on his throne carved from the bones of extinct species. How many ships do they have? Approximately 200. Vessels, sir. Maybe fewer. The Emperor laughed a sound like grinding metal. 200 ships. The hegemony fleet consists of 50,000 vessels. Send Admiral Zethmore with a battle group. Crush these insects once and for all. Sir General Vex Tar hesitated. Perhaps we should take a more cautious approach. The humans have proven surprisingly resourceful. Thrakton's eyes blazed with anger. Cautious. I did not build this empire by being cautious. I built it by showing every species in the galaxy what happens when they defy the hegemony. He stood his 7-foot frame towering over his advisors. Send Admiral Zethmore. Send him with the largest battle group we have ever assembled, and tell him I want every human ship destroyed, every human colony burned, and every human child killed. I want their species erased from existence. What the Emperor did not know was that intelligence officer Bei Ye Rim was listening to every word from her position inside the palace's computer systems humanity had broken into hegemony communications months ago. And they knew about the coming attack before Admiral Zethmore received his orders. Fleet Admiral Jeon Hyun-woo received bias warning while coordinating with resistance cells across 17 star systems. The news was worse than he had feared. 3,000 hegemony ships were coming led by their most experienced admiral. We cannot fight them, Captain Oh Min-seok said grimly. 3,000 ships against our entire fleet. It's suicide. John studied the tactical display showing the massive hegemony force moving through space toward the human base in the Centauri system. He was quiet for a long time, thinking. You are right, he finally said. We cannot fight them, but we can do something better. What's? That surgeon smiled. We can make them fight each other. The plan was bold even by human standards. Instead of running from the hegemony fleet, they would lead it directly into the territory of the Kythera swarm, a species of insect-like aliens who had been fighting the hegemony for 20 years. The Kythera were neutral toward humans, but they hated the hegemony with the passion of a species that had lost half their worlds to conquest. Their territory was marked by warning beacons that told all ships to stay away or be destroyed. The Kythera have been looking for a chance to strike a major blow against hegemony. Forces Jeon explained to his officers, we are going to give them that chance. Captain Lim Dahai looked skeptical. What makes you think they will not just destroy us too? Because Jeon said we are going to give them something they want more than our destruction. A chance to kill 3,000 hegemony ships. The trap was set in the Zerion Nebula, a vast cloud of gas that interfered with sensors and communications. Human ships led Admiral Zethmore's fleet deep into the nebula, staying just ahead of the hegemony forces, always visible, but never quite catchable. What Zethmore did not realize was that he was being led directly into the largest Kythera battle formation ever assembled. 15,000 ships hidden in the nebula's sensor shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Admiral Zethmore stood on his flagship bridge, watching the human ships flee. Before his mighty fleet, he had commanded hegemony forces for 30 years and had never lost a battle. These pathetic human survivors would be easy prey. Bring us within weapons range, he ordered. I want to watch their ships burn. His tactical officer looked uncertain. "Sir, the nebula is interfering with our sensors. We cannot see clearly what lies ahead." Zethmore waved dismissively. A few human ships hiding in a gas cloud. What could they possibly do against 3,000 vessels? He was about to find out. The Kythera attacked without warning. 15,000 ships erupted from the nebula's depths like an angry swarm. Their weapons were different from normal space combat technology. Bioengineered creatures that ate through ship hulls. Living. Missiles that hunted enemy vessels. Acid clouds that dissolved armor plating. The hegemony fleet found themselves caught between two enemies. The humans they had been chasing suddenly turned and attacked from behind, while the Kythera swarmed them. From all sides, Zethmore realized too late that he had been led into a trap. This was not a battle. This was a slaughter admiral. Jean watched the carnage from his command ship positioned safely outside the combat zone. The hegemony and Kythera fleets tore each other apart with savage fury. Ships exploded in brilliant flashes. Debris rained through space like deadly snow communications. Officer Kim So-jin reported from her station, "Sir, we are receiving distress calls from the hegemony fleet admiral. Zethmore is requesting immediate reinforcement." John smiled coldly. "Too late for that. Tell our ships to pull back. Let the Kythera finish what we started." The battle lasted 18 hours and lit up half the nebula with weapons fire. By the time it was over, both fleets were essentially destroyed. Admiral Zethmore was dead, along with most of the hegemony's best officers and their most advanced ships. But the humans had lost only 12 vessels. Intelligence specialist Nam Tai-hyun approached Jaeon's Command Chair Admiral, "Our spy networks report that news of the defeat has reached the capital Emperor. Thrakton is reportedly in a rage." "Good." John replied, "Let him rage. Let him realize that his empire is not as strong as he thought." The tactical implications were enormous. Emperor Thrakton had sent 3,000 ships to crush a few hundred human rebels. Instead, he had lost his entire strategic reserve and his most experienced admiral. The hegemony military was suddenly much weaker, while the Liberation Alliance had proven they could outthink their enemies. But more importantly, the battle had psychological effects across the galaxy. Word spread quickly that the mighty hegemony fleet had been defeated by clever tactics rather than superior numbers. Slave species began to believe that their oppressors could be beaten. Neutral worlds started to reconsider their positions. Rebellion began spreading like wildfire. Within days of the battle, 12 more star systems declared independence and joined. The Liberation Alliance hegemony governors found themselves facing uprisings on worlds that had been peaceful for decades. The Emperor had wanted to crush the human rebellion with overwhelming force. Instead, he had given the galaxy proof that the hegemony could be defeated. He had turned a small conflict into a galaxy-wide revolution. John stood on his bridge watching reports come in from across known space. Each report told the same story. More worlds joining the Alliance. More hegemony forces. Defecting, more slaves choosing freedom over safety. Emperor Thrakton had made the classic mistake of tyrants. He had believed his own propaganda about being invincible. He had forgotten that empires built on fear can crumble very quickly when that fear is turned against them. The humans had promised they would not stop fighting. Now the entire galaxy was joining their war. 2 years after Earth burned, Fleet Admiral Lee Min-ah stood on the bridge of humanity's flagship watching the final battle of the war unfold before her. The Liberation Alliance fleet stretched across space like a constellation of hope over one. 100,000 ships from 300 species, all united by their hatred of hegemony. Oppression facing them was what remained of the hegemony's once mighty armada. Perhaps 30,000 ships, many of them damaged, crewed by people who no longer believed in their cause. The great empire that had ruled the galaxy for 3 centuries was dying. Final surrender offer incoming. Communications Officer Park Hee-jin reported. Lee almost laughed. After everything the hegemony had done after the genocide of Earth, after centuries of oppression and slavery, they still thought this could end with negotiations. "Put it through," she said. Emperor Thrakton's image appeared on the main screen. He looked older, worn down by 2 years of constant defeat. Behind him, his palace throne room was still blackened from the human sabotage attack. "Admiral Lee," the Emperor said, his voice heavy with exhaustion. "Enough blood has been spilled. I am prepared to offer terms." "I am listening," Lee said coldly. "The hegemony will grant independence to all rebellious systems. We will withdraw to our core worlds and cease all expansion. In return, the Liberation Alliance will end hostilities and allow us to exist in peace." There was silence on the bridge. Several officers looked, to Lee waiting for her response. Lee was quiet for a long moment, thinking about Earth, thinking about 3 billion human souls turned to ash, thinking about all the species that had suffered under hegemony rule for centuries. "No," she said simply. Thrakton looked genuinely surprised. "No, Admiral, this war has cost both sides millions of lives. Surely nothing." Lee interrupted. "You did not offer terms when you burned our children alive. You did not negotiate when you turned our home into a graveyard. You said you wanted to show us what war looked like." Her voice grew harder. "Well, congratulations. You succeeded." She gestured to the tactical display where Alliance ships were moving into final attack positions. "You taught us that mercy is weakness. You taught us that the only way to deal with monsters is to become something even more terrifying." She leaned forward. "You wanted a fight, Your Majesty. Now we will not stop." The final battle lasted 6 hours. It was not really a battle at all. It was justice. The hegemony fleet, demoralized and outnumbered, collapsed within the first hour. Emperor Thrakton's flagship was boarded by human marines, led by Colonel Wanji Hai, a survivor of Earth's destruction. Thrakton was found in his command center, still wearing his ceremonial armor, still trying to maintain the dignity of his fallen empire. "Any last words?" Colonel Wan asked. The former emperor looked at her with something like respect. "You have become everything we feared you might be." Wan nodded. "Good." That was the point. Thrakton was executed exactly 2 years, 3 months, and 14 days after Earth burned. His death was broadcast across the galaxy, marking the official end of the hegemony after 3 centuries of rule. But humanity was not finished. Over the following months, Alliance fleets systematically hunted down every remaining hegemony outpost, every secret base, every hidden stronghold. They captured or killed every high-ranking official who had participated in the genocide. They liberated every slave world, freed every oppressed species, and destroyed every monument to hegemony power. The galaxy's political structure was completely rebuilt. The Liberation Alliance evolved into the Galactic Commonwealth, a democratic federation, where every species had an equal voice. Wars between species became rare, then almost non-existent. Trade flourished. Science advanced rapidly, as species shared knowledge freely. For the first time, art, culture, and philosophy bloomed across 1,000 worlds. It was everything the hegemony had claimed to offer, but had never delivered. Admiral Lee, now the first president of the Galactic Commonwealth, gave her final speech from the memorial built where Earth once orbited. The entire planet had been converted into a monument to the 3 billion humans who died and to all the other species that had suffered under hegemony rule. "They wanted to teach us about war," she said, her voice carrying across space to every inhabited world in the galaxy. "Instead, they taught us about ourselves. They showed us what we could become when everything we loved was taken away." She paused, looking at the stars that now flew the flags of free worlds instead of the hegemony's black banner. "We promised them we would not stop. We kept that promise. We did not just defeat the hegemony. We erased every trace of their empire from existence." Her voice grew stronger. We let the stars burn for the part they played in our suffering, and from those ashes we built something better. The memorial's eternal flame flickered behind her, fed by the recycled atoms of Earth itself. It would burn forever, a reminder of what had been lost and what had been gained. They wanted a fight. Lee concluded, they got a revolution. And now the galaxy belongs to the free captain. Kim Tae-ho stood among the crowd, listening to the speech. He was older now, scarred by years of war, but alive. He thought about that day 2 years ago when he had watched Seoul burn, when Admiral Lee had promised that humanity would not stop fighting. They had kept that promise. They had fought until every trace of tyranny was burned away. The stars themselves had been reborn in the fire of liberation. In the crowd around him were beings from hundreds of species, former slaves who had lived to see freedom, former enemies who had joined the cause, former neutrals who had chosen the right side. They were all free, now, free to live their own lives, make their own choices, raise their children in peace. It had cost millions of lives and years of war. But it was worth it. The hegemony was dead. Freedom lived. And somewhere in the cosmos, the spirits of Earth's children could finally rest in peace. Admiral Lee looked out at the assembled crowd representing every corner of the galaxy. She thought about the promise she had made 2 years ago, to make every species remember what happened when you murdered human children. The galaxy had remembered. The lesson had been learned, and it would never be forgotten. Wanted a fight, she whispered to herself, looking up at the stars. Now the galaxy belongs to those who fought for freedom. The memorial flame burned brighter as if responding to her words. It would burn forever, a promise that freedom once won would never be surrendered again. The war was over. The galaxy was free, and humanity had kept their word. The news of Admiral Zethmore's defeat reached Emperor Thrakton while he was dining in his palace on the capital world of Thrakmore Prime. The messenger, a junior officer named Kextal, was so terrified he could barely speak. 3,000 ships. Your Majesty, all destroyed. The humans. They led our forces into a Kithara ambush. Admiral Zethmore died fighting, but Thrakton crushed the wine glass in his hand, purple blood running between his fingers. Impossible. The humans are a broken species. They cannot have technology or numbers to threaten the hegemony, sir, his intelligence minister interrupted carefully. Our latest reports suggest the humans have formed an alliance with over 40 species. Former slaves, neutral worlds, even some of our own outer colonies have declared independence and joined them. The Emperor's rage was terrible to behold. He stood slowly, his massive frame trembling with fury. 40 species dare to defy me. Yes, sir. They call themselves the Liberation. Alliance Thrakton began pacing his clawed feet, leaving scratches in the marble floor. Then we will remind the galaxy why they should fear the hegemony. Mobilize every fleet, recall every ship from patrol duty. I want 100,000 vessels, assembled within the month, sir, that would leave many systems undefended. I do not care, Thrakton roared. We will crush this alliance, burn every rebellious world, and execute every being who dared to defy us. Let the galaxy see what happens to those who challenge the hegemony's power. What the Emperor did not know was that Captain Shin Yun-young was already on Thrakmore Prime, along with 50 other human special forces operators. They had been on the capital world for 3 weeks, posing as maintenance, workers and technicians. While the Emperor planned his massive counterattack, they were preparing to give him a very personal demonstration of human capabilities. The attack began at midnight. Thrakmore time, human saboteurs struck simultaneously at 12 critical targets. The planetary defense grid, the main communications center, the spaceport, the Imperial Guard barracks, and the palace itself. Shin led the palace assault team through maintenance tunnels that had been mapped weeks in advance. Her target was not the Emperor. Killing him would just make him a martyr and put someone potentially more competent in charge. Instead, her mission was much more psychologically devastating. Charges are set, explosives, expert, Nam Tai-hyun reported through. His communicator, palace, armory, treasury, and communication center are ready to blow. Security system is compromised. Electronic warfare specialist Kim Soo-jin added, "I have complete access to their surveillance network." Shin nodded. Phase 2 people. Let's give His Majesty a night he will never forget. The explosions began at 12:47 in the morning. The palace armory erupted in a fireball that could be seen for miles, sending weapons and ammunition flying in every direction. The treasury. Explosion was even more spectacular, scattering precious metals and currency across the capital city like deadly rain, but the real masterpiece was what happened next. Kim had not only broken into the palace security system, she had taken complete control of it. Every screen in the palace began showing footage of liberated worlds, former slaves building new lives, hegemony colonies declaring independence. The footage was mixed with images of earth-burning human children dying the genocide that had started this war. The message was repeated in every language spoken in the hegemony. You wanted a fight. Now we will not stop. Let the stars burn for the part they played. Emperor Thrakton found himself trapped in his own throne room watching as his empire fell apart on every screen around him. Imperial guards ran through the corridors trying to find the saboteurs, but the humans had vanished back into the tunnels like ghosts. The psychological impact was devastating. Within hours, news of the attack had spread across the galaxy. The hegemony's capital world, the most heavily defended planet in their territory, had been infiltrated and attacked with complete success. Their emperor had been humiliated in his own palace. More importantly, the attack had revealed something the hegemony leadership had been trying to hide. Their empire was crumbling. World after world was in open rebellion. Their fleets were scattered, their resources stretched thin, their authority questioned everywhere. By dawn, 17 more star systems had declared independence and joined the Liberation Alliance. Defense Minister Chekvol found the emperor standing among the ruins of his palace, staring at screens that still showed images of his empire's collapse. The mighty ruler who had conquered species and destroyed worlds looked old and tired. Your Majesty, we must respond to this attack. The people will think we are weak. Thrakton turned to look at him. His eyes filled with something the minister had never seen before. Fear weak, he repeated slowly. We are not weak, we are dying. The minister did not understand. Thrakton gestured at the screens showing rebellion after rebellion across his territory. Look at this. They are not just fighting us anymore. They are converting others to their cause. Every world we lose makes them stronger. Every battle we fight creates more enemies. He walked to his damaged throne and sat down heavily. For 3 centuries we ruled through fear. We showed species what would happen if they defied us and they chose submission instead. But we made a mistake with the humans. We thought burning their world would break them. Instead, we created something that cannot be broken, something that turns our own strength against us. The Emperor looked at the tactical displays showing Liberation Alliance forces growing stronger every day, human fleets, Kithara, swarms, former slave species working together, neutral worlds choosing sides. They promised they would not stop fighting. Thrakton said quietly. And they have kept that promise, but it is worse than that. They have made everyone else stop being afraid of us. Defense Minister Chekvol tried to maintain optimism. Your Majesty, we still have the largest fleet in the galaxy. We can still win this war. Thrakton laughed bitterly. Win? What does winning look like when half the galaxy hates us, when our own colonies are rebelling, when every species sees us as monsters to be destroyed rather than rulers to be obeyed? He stood and walked to the broken window looking out at his burning capital city. In the distance, explosions continued as human saboteurs struck more targets. "For 60 years I have ruled through terror," he said. "For 60 years, species across the galaxy have feared the hegemony more than they loved freedom." His voice became quiet, but the humans have taught them something new. They have taught them that freedom is worth any price, that tyrants can be defeated, that even the mightiest empire can fall. Emperor Thrakton stood alone in his ruined palace, watching his empire burn. The humans had kept their promise. They had not stopped fighting. And now the stars themselves seemed to be in rebellion against everything the hegemony represented. The war was far from over. But for the first time in 3 centuries, the emperor of the hegemony was afraid. Captain Song Hye-jin floated in the darkness between stars. Her ship was painted black, like all the others in the Ghost Fleet. They had removed every light, every marking, every sign that could identify them as human vessels. Instead, they looked like pieces of space debris drifting through the void. 6 months had passed since Earth burned. 6 months since 3 billion humans died. 6 months since Admiral Lee had declared war on the hegemony. In those months, the surviving humans had learned many things about their enemies. They had studied every battle recording, every destroyed ship, every tactical report. They had become students of war. Around Song's ship, 17 other human vessels waited in silence. They were hunting a hegemony supply convoy that carried weapons and ammunition to slave worlds. The convoy thought it was safe traveling through empty space far from any human colonies. They were wrong. Weapons, Officer Choi Sung-ho whispered from his station. Target confirmed, Captain. 12 enemy ships carrying supplies. Minimal escort, just 2 guard ships. Song studied the enemy formation on her screen. The alien ships moved slowly and carelessly. Their shields were down, their weapons powered low. They acted like they owned this part of space, like nothing could threaten them here. 6 months ago, they would have been right. 6 months ago, humanity was too busy trying to survive to think about attacking enemy convoys. But everything had changed when Earth died. Remember, we are not here to fight fair, Song told her crew. We are here to send a message. The Ghost Fleet attacked from 6 directions at once. Their weapons had been upgraded with stolen alien technology. Every shot was perfectly aimed, every target carefully chosen. The battle lasted exactly 4 minutes. When it was over, 12 supply ships were burning wreckage floating through space. But Song was not finished with her work. Open a channel to the surviving escort ship, she ordered. The alien commander appeared. On her screen, he had 4 eyes and blue skin. Song recognized his species as Vorth. The Vorth had been slaves of the hegemony for 200 years, forced to fight in their wars and die for their causes. Please, the Vorth captain begged, we surrender. We were only following orders. Song looked at him without any emotion showing on her face. You are right. You were following orders, orders to carry weapons that were used to murder our children. She paused. But I am going to give you something. The hegemony never gave us a choice. The alien captain looked confused. He had probably never heard a human speak before. Today was full of surprises for him. You can keep serving the hegemony. Song continued. Keep helping them murder innocent species. Keep being their slaves. Her voice became harder. Or you can help us kill them all. Lieutenant Lee Dong-min at the communications station looked surprised. They had never offered mercy to hegemony forces before. Every alien ship they found was destroyed. Without question, Song saw his expression and smiled coldly. Not mercy. Lieutenant recruitment. The hegemony rules through fear, but fear works both ways. If we can turn their own slaves against them, we will not just win this war. We will destroy their empire from the inside. The Vorth captain was quiet for a long time. His 4 eyes moved back and forth as he thought about Song's offer. Finally, he spoke. What do you need us to do? Song's smile grew wider. Tell me where their next supply depot is. Tell. Me? How many ships guard it? Tell me when they are most vulnerable. She leaned forward and then helped us burn it all down. Within hours, the Vorth ship had joined the Ghost Fleet. The aliens shared everything they knew about hegemony operations supply. Routes, patrol schedules, weapon depots, secret bases. Everything they had learned in 2 centuries of slavery, they gave to the humans. Within days, 2 more alien species had secretly pledged to help humanity. The Krell, who had been forced to mine dangerous metals on toxic worlds. The Yavek, whose children were taken away to serve as soldiers in hegemony armies. Each species that joined the rebellion brought new knowledge, new weapons, new ways to hurt their oppressors. The humans learned that they were not the only ones who hated the hegemony. Almost every species in the galaxy had reasons to want revenge. Song stood on her bridge 3 weeks later watching as her fleet had grown from 18 ships to over 200. Not all of them were human vessels anymore. Alien ships flew alongside human ones united by their hatred of tyranny. The Ghost Fleet had become something larger, something more dangerous. Communications. Officer Park Soo-jin turned from her station. Captain, we are receiving surrender. Requests from 3 more hegemony patrol groups. They want to join us. Song nodded. Send them the standard recruitment package. Tell them what we expect from allies. Tell them what happens to enemies. The standard package was simple. Join the rebellion. And live. Keep serving the hegemony and die. There was no middle ground, no negotiation, no mercy for those who chose to remain loyal to the empire that had murdered billions. Intelligence specialist Yang Ji-hoon approached Song's command chair. Captain, our spy network reports that 18 hegemony worlds have declared independence in the past month. They are calling it the Liberation Alliance. Song felt satisfaction deep in her chest. The Ghost Fleet was no longer just a group of human survivors, seeking revenge. It had become the military arm of a galaxy-wide rebellion. Every world that joined them made the hegemony weaker. How many species have joined the alliance? She asked. 43 confirmed. Yang replied with a smile. Another dozen are, secretly supporting us with supplies and intelligence. Song thought about Admiral Lee's words 6 months ago about making every species remember what happened when you murdered human children. It seemed like the galaxy was remembering the hegemony, had ruled through fear for 3 centuries, but now that fear was being turned against them. Captain Choi interrupted her thoughts. We have another convoy approaching long-range sensors. Show 20 ships heavily guarded. Song studied the tactical display. This convoy was different. Bigger, more important, more dangerous. The kind of target that could really hurt the hegemony if destroyed. Signal the fleet, she ordered. All ships prepare for coordinated attack. Remember people 6 months ago, they thought. They had broken us. They thought we would run and hide like beaten animals. The Ghost Fleet began moving through space like a pack of hunters. Each ship knew its role, each captain understood the plan. They had practiced this attack pattern dozens of times on smaller targets. Today, they would find out if it worked against a major hegemony force. They thought burning our world would make us surrender. Song continued speaking to her fleet, but they made a mistake. They forgot that humans are very good at learning from their enemies. The enemy convoy was getting closer. Song could see the individual ships now. Transport vessels carrying supplies to slave worlds. Guard ships protecting them. Crews who thought they were safe in the darkness of space. And they taught us that mercy is a weakness, that peace is an illusion, that the only way to deal with monsters is to become something even more terrifying. Song paused as her weapon systems powered up. The attack began 30 seconds later. The Ghost Fleet struck like lightning from the darkness. 20. Hegemony ships never knew what hit them. The battle was over before the enemy could even call for help, as Song watched the enemy vessels burn. She thought about Earth. She thought about her family who died when the aliens attacked. She thought about 3 billion people who would never see another sunrise. The hegemony had wanted to teach humanity about war. Instead, they had created their own destruction. The Ghost Fleet was proof that some lessons could not be unlearned, some wounds could not be healed, some enemies could not be forgiven. The aliens had asked for a fight. Now they were getting one that would not end until their empire was nothing but ashes floating in space. Administrator Kang Soo-min sat in her office reviewing reports when the emergency alarm started screaming. She was not human. She was Zelani, a species that joined the hegemony 50 years ago after their homeworld was destroyed for resisting alien rule. Kang ruled the mining colony of Carrion 7 with absolute power. She used fear and violence to control the slave workers, just like every other hegemony administrator. The slaves dug valuable metals from deep underground and shipped them to build more warships for the empire. But lately, the slaves had been whispering about ghost ships. They told stories of human vessels appearing from nowhere, destroying hegemony convoys and vanishing back into space. Some claimed the humans were building a secret army recruiting allies from across the galaxy. Kang had dismissed these stories as fantasy. The humans were a broken species, scattered and running for their lives. They could not possibly threaten the mighty hegemony. She was about to learn how wrong she was. The planetary defense grid suddenly went dark. Every satellite, every orbital platform, every defensive weapon simply turned off. In the colony's control center, technicians frantically tried to restore power while Kang screamed orders. At them, it's not a power failure. Chief Technician Vex reported his tentacles shaking with fear. The systems are active, but they are not responding to our commands. It's like someone else is controlling them, that someone was intelligence specialist. Yang Ji-hoon, working from a stealth ship hidden behind the planet's largest moon. He had spent 3 days breaking into the colony's computer systems, learning every password, every security code, every weakness. Defense grid is ours. Yang reported to Strike Commander Park. So young colony is completely defenseless. Park nodded grimly. Begin Phase 2. But remember, we are not here to kill slaves. We are here to free them. The human attack was unlike anything the hegemony had seen before. Instead of bombing from space or sending huge invasion armies, small teams of human soldiers simply appeared throughout the colony. They used stolen alien teleportation technology improved with human engineering. The humans did not attack the slave quarters or the work areas. Instead, they went straight for the hegemony overseers, the security forces, the administrative buildings. Within 2 hours, every hegemony official on Carrion 7 was either dead or captured. Administrator Kang found herself face with Park So-young in her own office. The human woman was young, maybe 25, but her eyes held the cold fury of someone who had lost everything. "You have ruled this colony for 8 years, Park said calmly. "In that time, how many slaves have you executed?" Kang tried to maintain her authority. "I am a hegemony administrator. I demand to speak to your commanding officer." Park smiled without warmth. "I am the commanding officer, and you did not answer my question." She showed Kang a tablet with detailed records. "According to your own reports, you have executed 2,347 slaves for various crimes. Theft, disobedience, attempting to escape. They were criminals." Kang protested. "I was maintaining order. You were maintaining slavery." Park corrected. "But here is the interesting part. 300 of those executions happened after Earth burned, after you knew what the hegemony had done to our people." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "You celebrated our genocide by killing more innocents." Kang suddenly realized she was not going to leave this room alive. Park continued, "But I am not going to kill you. That would be too quick." She pointed to the window where thousands of freed slaves were gathered in the colony's main square. "I am going to let them decide what happens to you." The trial lasted 6 hours. Former slaves testified about years of abuse, torture, and murder under Kang's rule. They spoke about family members who had been executed for minor infractions about children, who had been taken away to serve the hegemony, about friends who had died in the dangerous mines. When it was over, the verdict was unanimous as Kang was led away to face the justice of those she had oppressed. Park addressed the liberated colony over the public speaker system. People of Carrion 7, you are free, but freedom is not a gift we are giving you. It is something you will have to fight for. She paused. The hegemony will send fleets to retake this world. They will try to enslave you again. You have a choice. You can run and hide hoping they will leave you alone, or you can stand with us and fight back. The response was immediate and overwhelming. By the end of the day, 15,000 former slaves had volunteered to join the human rebellion. More importantly, they brought detailed knowledge of hegemony systems tactics and weaknesses. Engineer Bex, who had been forced to maintain the colony's equipment for 12 years, showed the humans how to disable hegemony shield generators. Former Guard Captain Zell revealed the locations of secret weapon depots on 6 other worlds. Nurse Kira explained how to identify and treat injuries caused by hegemony torture devices. Each piece of information made the rebellion stronger. Dr. Kim Min-jun, the expedition's medical officer, worked tirelessly to treat former slaves who had been injured or poisoned by years of abuse. Many had scars from punishment devices, others had lung damage from breathing toxic mine air. Still others showed signs of malnutrition and psychological trauma. But even the most damaged slaves wanted to fight. They had been waiting decades for someone to give them hope for freedom. Captain Lim Da-hai coordinated the evacuation of civilians who could not fight. The elderly, the very young, the sick and injured were loaded onto transport ships and taken to safe worlds controlled by the Liberation Alliance. The rest, prepared for war weapons instructor Oh Sung-woo, trained former slaves how to use captured hegemony equipment. Most had never held a weapon before, but they learned quickly when they knew they were fighting for their children's freedom. Within a week, the colony had been transformed from a slave camp into a military base. Defensive positions were built around the main facilities, weapon emplacements were installed at strategic points, sensor networks were established to watch for approaching enemy ships. But the most important change was in the people themselves. Former slave Yek, who had been beaten for speaking his native language, now proudly taught it to human soldiers. Former miner Tran, who had been forced to work 20-hour days, now volunteered for the most dangerous reconnaissance missions. Former cook Zara, who had been starved, as punishment, now insisted on preparing meals for the entire base. They were no longer slaves. They were soldiers in the Liberation Alliance. Commander Park stood on the colony's highest tower, looking out at the transformed landscape. 3 weeks ago, this had been a place of misery and oppression. Now, it was a symbol of hope. Communications. Officer Hong reported from behind her. Commander Long Range sensors detect a hegemony battle group approaching estimated arrival in 6 hours. Park nodded. Send the word to all Alliance forces. The enemy is coming. But she was not worried. The hegemony was sending ships to retake a slave colony. Instead, they would find an army of former slaves who had learned that freedom was worth dying for. They would find humans who had proven that even the mightiest empire could be brought down by those who refused to surrender. The battle for Carrion 7 would not be the last, but it would be remembered as the moment when the galaxy learned that the Liberation Alliance was not just a human rebellion anymore. It was a revolution that included every species that had ever suffered under hegemony rule, and revolutions once started are very hard to stop. Captain Kim Tae-ho pressed his face against the cold glass window of the space station. He could see his home planet Earth spinning slowly below him, but something was very wrong. The blue and green world he had known since childhood was now covered in orange and red flames. Seoul was burning. His hands shook as he watched the city where he grew up disappear under a wall of fire. The alien ships hung in the sky like black metal monsters, their weapons shot down from space, turning buildings into dust and people into nothing. Kim had been in space for 3 months on a supply mission. When he left Earth, everything was normal. People went to work, children played in parks, his mother was planning his birthday party for next week. Now he might never see her again. The aliens called themselves the Hegemony. They had come to Earth 6 months ago with a simple message: submit to our rule or we will destroy everything you love. Most planets in the galaxy had chosen to submit. A few had chosen to fight and were wiped out completely. Humanity had chosen something different. They had said, maybe. For 6 months, Earth leaders had talked and argued and tried to find a third option. They sent diplomats to meet with the aliens. They offered trade, deals, and technology sharing. They begged for more time to decide. The aliens had grown tired of waiting. Admiral Lee Minna stood next to Kim at the window. She was the youngest admiral in Earth history, only 35 years old but already famous for being smart and brave. Her dark hair was pulled back and her uniform was perfect, but Kim could see tears in her eyes. The command center behind them was full of noise and panic. Thousands of people worked at computers and screens trying to save. Whoever they could, refugee ships were launching from Earth, carrying families and children away from the burning cities. But there were not enough ships, not enough time. Too many people were still down there. Park Jin-woo ran into the command center, carrying a tablet. His face was white with shock. He was the head of Earth military and had spent his whole life preparing for war. But not this kind of war, Admiral. This is worse than we thought, Park said. His voice was shaking. Every major city is under attack. Beijing, Tokyo, London, New York. They are all burning. The aliens are not just attacking military targets. They are killing everyone. Kim felt sick to his stomach. He thought about his sister who lived in Tokyo, his cousin in London, his friends scattered across the world. Were they all dead now? Had the aliens murdered them while he watched helplessly from space? We have lost contact with all ground bases. Park continued. The planet is completely cut off. We estimate 3 billion casualties. In the first hour alone, 3 billion people. Kim could not understand such a large number. It was too big, too terrible. His brain refused to accept it. 3 billion meant almost everyone he had ever known. 3 billion meant his mother, his sister, his friends, his neighbors, the old man who sold newspapers near his apartment, the little girl who lived downstairs, all gone. The alien ships were moving away from Earth now. Their work was finished. They had delivered their message loud and clear. This is what happens when you do not obey the hegemony. This is what war looks like. Submit now or more planets will burn. In the command center, people were crying. Some were angry. Some were in shock. But Admiral Lee was different. She stood perfectly still, watching Earth burn. Her face showed no emotion, but Kim could see something cold and terrible growing in her eyes. Send a message to every human ship, every colony, every outpost in the galaxy, Lee said. Her voice was quiet, but everyone in the room could hear her. What should we tell them? Admiral Park asked. Lee turned away from the burning planet. Her eyes were like ice. Tell them Earth is dead. Tell them 3 billion of our people are gone. Tell them the aliens wanted to show us what war looks like. She walked to the center of the command center where everyone could see her. The room fell silent. Tell them that from this day forward we are no longer fighting to protect our home, Lee continued. We are fighting to make sure every species in this galaxy remembers what happens when you murder our children. Kim understood what she meant. The aliens had made a terrible mistake. They thought burning Earth would make humanity surrender. Instead, they had just created something much more dangerous, a humanity with nothing left to lose. The hegemony ruled through fear. They conquered planets by showing them the cost of resistance. They expected species to see the destruction and choose slavery over death. It had worked for 300 years, on 57 different species, but they had never met anyone like humans before. For 300 years, the hegemony had been the monsters hiding in the dark places of space. They were the thing that species had nightmares about. They were death and slavery and the end of hope. Now they had just created something worse. Admiral Lee looked around the command center at the faces of the survivors. These people had watched their world die, had seen their families murdered, had lost everything they ever cared about. But instead of breaking them, it had changed them into something harder and colder and infinitely more dangerous. The aliens wanted to teach us about fear. Lee said, "Tell them they succeeded, but they made one mistake. They assumed we would be the ones who were afraid." She pointed at the tactical display showing the alien fleet moving away from Earth, confident in their victory. They have no idea what they have just created. They think they have beaten us. They think we will come, crawling to them, begging to join their empire as slaves. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was filled with cold promise. They are about to learn that they have given birth to their own destruction. Kim looked back at Earth one more time. His beautiful blue planet was now a ball of fire and smoke. The oceans were boiling. The atmosphere was full of ash where once there had been clouds, where once there had been life. But he was not thinking about what was lost anymore. He was thinking about what came next. The hegemony had ruled the galaxy for 3 centuries through terror and violence. They had destroyed countless species and enslaved the survivors. They thought they were the apex predators, the ultimate killers, the final word. In galactic power, they were about to discover they were wrong. Admiral Lee began giving orders to her staff. Contact every human vessel. Tell them to gather at the rendezvous point. Tell them to bring every weapon, every ship, every person who wants to fight. Tell them we are going to war. Not a war to defend something. A war to destroy everything the aliens had built. A war to burn down their empire and salt the ashes. A war that would not end until every hegemony world was free, and every hegemony leader was dead. The aliens wanted a fight. Now they were going to get one. Kim pressed his hand against the window glass one last time. His reflection stared back at him, but he was not the same person who had looked out this window an hour ago. That person had been someone who loved and hoped and dreamed of the future. This person was someone else entirely. This person was ready for war.